At the hospital, I was standing just outside the curtain when I heard my mother-in-law say it. "Burn the other birth certificate. She never needs to know." My heart stopped. And then Darren, my husband, replied in the calmest voice, like he was confirming a dinner reservation. "One was enough." I never wanted twins. I didn't move. I couldn't. It was like the floor gave out under me and I was floating above everything, watching the moment happen to someone else. They didn't know I was there, or maybe they didn't care. Sylvia's voice was low, but firm, like she'd said it before, like this was a conversation they had rehearsed. Darren didn't argue, he just agreed, like it was the most normal thing in the world to erase someone's existence, like it wasn't my child they were talking about. I didn't say anything. I couldn't even breathe properly. The hospital lights above me felt too bright, like a spotlight, exposing everything I'd never seen before. I pressed my hand to the wall just to steady myself. That sentence, "She never needs to know," kept looping in my head. Who was she? Me? My daughter? Were they hiding something from Noah? Was it something from when he was born? When we finally got Sylvia discharged and brought her back to the house, no one said another word about what happened at the hospital. She acted like nothing had been said. Darren was distant, almost robotic. I didn't push. I told myself I must have misheard. That stress was playing tricks on me. But then we walked through the front door. Noah was waiting for us in the living room. His legs were crossed, and he was flipping through a plastic folder filled with old papers the nurse had given him at school. They'd just visited the local hospital as part of a class trip. When he looked up at me, his face was confused, curious. He held out a photo in both hands. "Mom, who's this other baby?" I walked over, trying to focus. The photo was dated the day Noah was born. It was taken in the hospital. There were two babies in the picture, side by side, swaddled in the same patterned hospital blanket, each wearing tiny hats. One had a name card that said Noah. The other had no label, just a blank space. My fingers tightened around the edges of the photo. Two babies. Not just Noah. Two. They had the same face, the same expression, the same small, wrinkled hands. One was him. The other, who was she? Darren came up behind me and glanced over my shoulder. He froze. I felt his breath hitch, just for a second. He didn't say anything. I turned to him. My throat was dry. "Who is this?" He didn't answer. Noah looked back and forth between us. "Is that my sister?" The question hung in the air. No one answered him either. I stared at the photo again. My son, and a baby girl next to him, a second child no one ever told me existed. And in that moment, I knew two things. First, I hadn't misheard anything at the hospital, and second, my entire family was built on a lie. Before everything fell apart, we looked like a normal family from the outside. People would tell me how lucky I was. I had a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood, a son who made everyone smile, and a husband with a solid career. We were the kind of family people sent Christmas cards to, with matching outfits and staged fall photos in front of pumpkins. I played the role well. I kept the house in order, made the lunches, took Noah to school, and smiled during PTA meetings even when my stomach twisted. Something about our life never felt settled. It was like living in a room where everything looked clean, smelled faintly of mold. I didn't know where the smell was coming from, and I didn't know how to explain it to anyone else. My name is Camilla Hartley. I used to teach second grade before Noah was born. I loved it. I loved helping kids figure out who they were. But after Noah, we decided I'd stay home. Darren insisted. He said we could afford it and that Noah deserved a full-time parent. He never said, "You deserve this." That distinction mattered more the longer I sat in it. Darren and I met in college. He was calm and focused, always 10 steps ahead. At first, I admired how steady he was. It made me feel safe. But over the years, that steadiness turned into something else. He rarely shared what he was thinking. He avoided hard conversations, and when I asked questions that mattered, he would shut me down with a reassuring smile and vague words. "Everything's fine. You worry too much. Let it go." After Noah was born, Darren changed. At first, I thought it was just the stress of becoming a parent. He was exhausted and distracted. He started working longer hours. When I brought up trying for another baby, he always found a reason to say no. Too soon, too risky, too much pressure. I stopped asking after a while. I told myself maybe I was being selfish. I tried to be grateful. The night Noah was born, I remember the first few minutes so clearly. The contractions, the nurse holding my hand, the look on Darren's face when he first saw Noah, but then everything blurred. I had complications during the delivery and lost a lot of blood. I was put under heavy medication. I remember waking up and asking, "Is he okay?" Someone said yes. I remember a faint second crying sound, but the nurse told me I was disoriented. I accepted that. The hospital kept me for nearly a week. I was weak, emotionally numb, and struggling to connect with what had happened. Sylvia visited once. She stood at the foot of my bed inspecting me like a broken appliance. She didn't bring flowers. She didn't ask how I felt. She just told me Noah was strong, like his father, and that I'd better rest up because motherhood was no excuse for falling apart. My relationship with Sylvia was always a minefield. She didn't like how emotional I was. She once told me I had too much heart and not enough spine. Darren never defended me. He would brush her comments off with a soft laugh or a change of subject. I learned to keep quiet when she was around. Noah became my entire world. He was a bright, curious boy with a kind heart. He loved puzzles and building things. He asked questions that made me pause, like, "Do you think I was supposed to be someone else?" Or, "Were you lonely before I was born?" I always hugged him a little longer after those questions. I kept thinking about trying again. I missed the feeling of holding a newborn. I wanted a daughter. I wanted Noah to have someone to share his life with. But every time I hinted at it, Darren shut the door harder. The last time I brought it up, he said, "I told you. One is enough." I wondered if he was afraid something would go wrong again. I thought maybe the trauma of that night had left a scar on him too. I even considered seeing a therapist to process the gap I felt in our family, but I never went. I thought the feeling would pass. Now I know it never would have. That dull ache, that faint smell of something wrong, that missing piece I could never explain, it was real. And it was waiting for the right moment to come to the surface. That moment had just begun. It started with a faint sound behind a hospital curtain. Sylvia had fainted at the kitchen table during Sunday lunch, and Darren and I rushed her to the ER. It was a hot day. I remember the way her pearls clattered against the floor when she collapsed. In the car, Darren's hands were tight on the steering wheel. He didn't speak, not even to reassure Noah, who sat silent in the back seat, his knees pulled up to his chest. When we arrived, the nurses took Sylvia in immediately. Darren followed her while I stayed behind to handle the paperwork. After I filled out the forms, I wandered toward the curtained bays to check on them. That's when I heard it. "Burn the other birth certificate. She never needs to know." Sylvia's voice was low, firm, and sharp, like she wasn't afraid of being heard. Then Darren's reply, colder than I've ever heard him speak. "One was enough. I never wanted twins." I didn't make a sound. I didn't walk in. I just stood there, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I wanted to believe I misheard them. I wanted to believe there was some other explanation. But the words were clear, and they were final. They weren't debating. They weren't struggling with guilt. This was a conversation built on confidence and control. I stepped back before they noticed me, walked to the waiting room, and sat down. My hands were shaking. I stared at the clock on the wall for what felt like hours. The ride home was silent. Sylvia was asleep in the back seat, her head against the window. Darren kept his eyes on the road. I turned my face to the window, watching the trees blur by. I didn't ask. I didn't want him to lie. I wanted time to think, to breathe, to process the weight of what I had heard. When we got home, the first thing I saw was Noah sitting on the floor of the living room with a photo in his lap. His kindergarten class had toured the hospital that week, and one of the nurses had given him a folder with sample forms and a few photos from the maternity wing to show the students what a birth certificate looked like. But this one was different. Noah held it up. His face was puzzled. "Mom, who's this other baby?" I walked over, slowly. The photo was glossy, printed on hospital letterhead, dated 6 years ago. The same date Noah was born. 2 babies were swaddled in pink and blue blankets lying side by side. Both were freshly born, eyes closed, cheeks red. One had a name card labeled Noah Hartley. The other had no label at all. They looked identical. Not just similar, identical. Same nose, same ears, same dark fuzz on their heads. Twins. I felt something crack open inside me. I took the photo from Noah's hands and stared at it like it might change if I blinked hard enough. "Is that my sister?" he asked. Darren entered the room a moment later. His expression changed the second he saw the photo in my hands. He stopped mid-step. I looked at him. My voice was barely steady. "What is this?" He didn't answer. Noah turned to him. "Daddy, is that my sister?" Still nothing. Just a long, thick silence. Darren walked forward slowly, took the photo from my hands, looked at it for a second, then set it on the table like it didn't matter. "It's nothing, just a mistake," he said. "A mistake?" I asked. "That's Noah. That's the day he was born. And that's another baby next to him, a girl. Why does she not have a name?" "It was nothing," he repeated. "We went through a lot that day. You were barely conscious. You don't remember what it was like." "Then tell me," I said. "Tell me what happened." He didn't. He walked away. That night, after Noah was asleep, I searched every cabinet, every drawer, every hidden corner of the house, looking for answers. I didn't even know what I was looking for yet, just proof, anything. Something inside me had shifted. This wasn't something I could ignore, and it wasn't going away. A missing baby, a second birth. A secret my husband and his mother had buried deep under years of silence. But it was coming to the surface now, and I was going to dig until I found the truth. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to Darren, staring at the ceiling while he snored quietly beside me, like everything was fine. Like we hadn't just been caught standing at the edge of a lie so deep it had nearly swallowed us whole. I watched the clock tick past 2, then 3. My heart wouldn't slow down. That photo had burned itself into my mind. 2 babies, one named, one erased, one life celebrated, the other buried. And somehow I had slept through it all. Noah deserved to know the truth. I deserved to know the truth. So I got up. I moved through the house in the dark, careful not to wake anyone. I knew exactly where to look. In our attic, there was an old cedar trunk Darren had insisted we never open. He told me it was full of legal documents and family records from his father's estate. It was locked with a heavy brass latch. That night, I didn't care about rules. I didn't care about what I wasn't supposed to find. I pried the lid open with a screwdriver. My hands were shaking. Inside, I found old tax files, medical records, property deeds. I dug deeper. Beneath a stack of file folders, I found a small envelope marked Hartley, 2019, the year Noah was born. Inside were 2 birth certificates, one for Noah Hartley, one for a baby girl. Nora Hartley, same birth date, same time, same hospital. I sat down hard on the attic floor and pressed my fingers over my mouth. I couldn't make sense of the words in front of me. I was reading them. I was holding them. And they still didn't feel real. The certificate for Nora had been signed by Darren. The line where my signature should have been was blank. There were more documents in the envelope. Discharge summaries, a form titled Parental Relinquishment of Custody, Infant. The page detailed a decision to release legal claim to a child due to medical complications, citing the father's authority. It was signed the day after Noah's birth. I was listed as sedated, unavailable for consent. The reason section said, due to critical instability, survival unlikely. No one ever told me she lived. No one ever gave me a chance to decide. I sat there for almost an hour, reading those documents over and over again. I tried to convince myself there was some reason this had happened, that Darren had been protecting me, that Sylvia had been trying to help, but nothing about it felt like protection. It felt like theft. My daughter had been taken from me under my own roof, in my own body, and the people closest to me had hidden it with paperwork and silence. The next morning, I didn't pretend anymore. I waited for Darren to come down to the kitchen. He walked in still half asleep, pouring himself a cup of coffee like it was any other day. I set the envelope on the table in front of him. He froze. "Where did you get that?" he asked. "The attic," I said. "I opened the trunk. You lied to me." He stared at it for a long time. Then he sat down, slowly. "She wasn't going to make it," he said. "The doctors told me she had less than a 5% chance of survival. They asked me what I wanted to do. You were unconscious. I didn't want you to wake up and see her die." "So you gave her away?" My voice was sharp, but I wasn't yelling. You let them take her like she was a mistake? She wasn't breathing, he said. They told me it would be easier. They said I could save you more trauma. And you never thought I deserved to know? He looked at me and I saw it. Not regret, not guilt, just exhaustion. He had built this lie so carefully that even now, faced with proof, he still believed it had been the right decision. I made the best call I could, he said. No, I told him. You made the call for both of us. You decided who got to live in this family. You buried my child. I took the photo from the living room table, folded the birth certificates into my purse, and walked out the door. I didn't know exactly where I was going yet, but I knew who I was looking for, my daughter. I didn't stop to cry. I didn't stop to question myself. I had a name, a date, a hospital, and a truth no one could take from me anymore. The first thing I did was call the hospital where Noah and Nora were born. I asked for the NICU records from the day of their birth. The woman on the phone paused when I gave her Nora's name. She asked for identification and proof of relationship. I faxed everything I had, birth certificates, the discharge forms, even a scanned copy of the photo Noah had found. An hour later, my phone rang. "This is Nurse Lila Temple," the voice said. "I was on duty the night your twins were born." The word twins hit hard. It was the first time someone else had said it out loud. I sat down at the kitchen table and pressed the phone to my ear. My whole body felt like it was vibrating. "I remember them," Lila said. "I remember you. You were in surgery for a while after the delivery. We were told your daughter wasn't going to survive, but she did. It was a tough couple of days, but she made it." My mouth went dry. "She lived?" "She was in critical condition at first. Breathing issues. We kept her in an incubator. She responded well. Her stats started improving. But 3 days later, she was gone. A man came in with paperwork. He said the parents had decided to place her." "A man?" I asked. "Yes. He said he was the father." I remember because I asked him if he wanted to hold her before she left. He refused. I closed my eyes, trying to stay upright. "Where did she go?" "She was transferred to foster care through the hospital's emergency placement program. When a parent signs a full relinquishment form, the baby is placed into state care. It doesn't happen often, but it's legal." "She was never adopted?" I asked. "She was taken in by a foster family in Oregon. After that, I don't know. We don't track them after placement." I thanked her. I wrote everything down. I held the phone in my hand after the call ended and stared at the wall for a long time. I'd been sleeping under the same roof as a man who stole my child and convinced himself it was mercy. That night, I called a lawyer. The next day, I hired a private investigator. I didn't tell Darren what I was doing. There was nothing left to say. 3 weeks later, I got a call. The investigator found her. Her name was still Nora. She had never been adopted. She was still in the foster system, placed with a couple in Bend, Oregon. They were older, caring. They had taken her in as an infant and had been trying to adopt her for over a year. The delay was due to a legal complication with the original parental release form. My name had never been on it. It had triggered an inquiry. I flew to Oregon alone. I sat in a quiet office with beige walls and a social worker who handed me a folder with Nora's file, her photos, her milestones, her health records. She was small, but strong. She had survived everything and somehow smiled through it. In one photo, she was wearing a yellow dress with ducks on it. She looked like Noah. Same eyes, same mouth, a mirror I had been missing. When they brought her in to meet me, she was holding a book. She looked up at me with wide, cautious eyes. She was 6 years old. Her hair was tied back in 2 braids. She didn't speak at first. I didn't expect her to. I knelt down and smiled. "Hi, my name is Camila. I think we're connected." She blinked and for a moment just watched me. Then she asked, "Do you have any books with animals?" I laughed. I nodded. "I have a whole shelf." She reached for my hand. Later, back at home, Noah sat on the couch, holding the photo that had started it all. He looked up at me. "Is she coming here?" I sat beside him and pulled him close. "That's up to her, but I'm going to make sure she knows she has a place, that she belongs." Noah looked at the photo again. "I hope she likes dinosaurs." "I think she will." In one moment, everything had shattered, but in another, everything had opened. The truth didn't destroy me. It brought her back. It took time. No story like this ends with a perfect reunion and smiles in every direction. Real life doesn't work like that. Real life is quieter, more uncertain, full of pauses that feel like choices. Nora didn't come home right away. The foster family she had been living with had raised her since she was an infant. They were kind people, and she loved them. She didn't remember me. She didn't remember anything before them. I had to earn her trust. I started by sending letters. Simple ones. I told her about our house, our garden, the big oak tree in the backyard that Noah liked to climb. I sent her pictures of the cookies Noah and I baked every Saturday. I sent her drawings Noah made just for her. He wrote her notes that said things like, "I hope you like Legos. I'm good at sharing." For a while, I didn't hear back. Then, one day, I received a drawing in the mail. It was two kids standing under a tree, a big oak tree. One boy, one girl, they were both smiling. The girl had 2 braids. I cried for a long time that day. Eventually, the court reopened the custody case. Since I had never legally surrendered my rights, the previous paperwork was void. The foster parents supported my involvement. They loved Nora, but they also believed she deserved the truth and a chance to know her birth family. Nora started visiting during school breaks. The first time she came to stay with us, she brought a suitcase full of stuffed animals and lined them up on her bed, naming each one. Noah helped her alphabetize them. They bonded over animal facts, building pillow forts and making obstacle courses in the backyard. One night, I found them asleep on the floor of her room, curled up on either end of a giant beanbag chair, holding flashlights and whispering stories. I stood there for a while, watching them breathe and sink. I had missed 6 years with her. I would never get those back. I didn't get to hold her when she took her first steps or brush her hair on her first day of kindergarten. I didn't get to rock her when she cried. That grief still lives in me, and I let it. I don't try to silence it anymore, but I also don't let it define what comes next. I filed for divorce 2 months after Nora's second visit. Darren tried to stop me at first. He said I was breaking our family apart. I reminded him that our family had been broken the moment he chose silence over truth. The court awarded me full custody of Noah. Darren sees him on scheduled weekends. Nora has the choice to visit him, but she hasn't asked to. Sylvia never contacted me again. I never expected her to. I focused on healing, on building something new with my children. We started therapy as a family. We talk openly now. When Noah asks questions, I answer them. When Nora gets quiet and pulls into herself, I sit beside her and wait for the words to come. The hardest part of rebuilding trust is letting your children see that you're human, that you've made mistakes, that you're trying every single day to be better than the day before. I tell them both, you were never a mistake. You were always mine. Even when I didn't know how to find you, I never stopped needing you. Nora asked me once, "Would you have kept me if you knew?" I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Yes. I would have fought for you with everything I had." She nodded. She didn't say anything else, but the next night she asked me to braid her hair before bed. Sometimes the biggest love stories aren't the ones we plan. Sometimes they're the ones we have to fight to reclaim. The ones that rise out of silence, out of loss, out of choices made by people who thought they were protecting us. I lost time. I lost trust. I lost the life I thought I had, but I found her. And in finding her, I found the version of myself who stopped settling for peace, built on secrets. The truth is painful, but it's also powerful. It gave me back my daughter, it gave Noah a sister, and it gave all 3 of us the chance to build something real that will always be enough. Thank you for watching my story. If it moved you, if it made you think about the power of truth, or reminded you of how important it is to listen to your intuition, please take a moment to like the video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that healing is possible, even after the deepest kind of betrayal. And if you've been through something like this or are going through it now, leave a comment. Your voice matters. You never know who you might help just by sharing. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want more true stories that go deeper than the surface. Stories about real families, real heartbreak, and the strength it takes to choose truth over silence. Because sometimes the stories we're most afraid to tell are the ones that set us free.